Today I am honored to be joined by Dr. the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Dr. Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons. Welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Good. Now, you have had a very long career in politics and also in medicine. You're a medical doctor by profession. But you have just written your autobiography. And many people can't wait to read it.
Well, I like that.
Because of a life, of course, well lived. A life of service that you have given to the country, that you have given to the Caribbean, that you have given to further afield, and that you have given to your family. Very, very important. And this book chronicles your early life, your education, your life in politics, your medical life. It is a potpourri, if I may put it that way. But let's begin with the book. This book, I remember you told me that you were writing this book, and I would see you coming religiously sometimes to the archives here at government headquarters and so on. And I would ask, when am I going to get that interview? And you keep saying, after I have finished the book. Well, now the book is finished, and people will now have a chance to access the book and to know more about your life. But what is the name of the book?
Well, the name of the book, in a sense, reflects just what you were talking about, that the whole sort of tapestry of my life, starting as a little fellow, growing up on the dirt road of Rosemary Lane, and going to a small school, Miss Matthew School in Market Street, and going to the school of the famous and legendary Mr. Beach, the Bastille Boys School. And so it is the making of a national hero. That is the name of the book, The Making of a National Hero. And all these facets of my life that you've talked about, and some that you haven't mentioned, are all woven into the tapestry.
Right.
Which is now presented to you as the national hero.
Right. And you are the first living national hero. You get your flowers. You're the only one thus far who has gotten his flowers while you're alive.
Well, I can tell you, the best part of this whole national hero business is the living part. I appreciate that, and I'm thankful for it.
Right. Okay. Now, what inspired the writing of the book? What motivated you to write this book?
Well, perhaps I should start by telling you that's the last thought I would have had in my head through all the years of growing up. But various times within the book, you will find that I ended up with something which I'd never thought of, which would have been the furthest thought from my mind. And so it is with the writing of the book. But the writing of the idea of writing the book, of course, comes in the latter part of my life and my career. And by then, I became conscious of the fact that I had so many different experiences, and it is a story not only of success, but of occasional failure. And I had to learn from both success and failure to carry on. And so I thought that within this story of my life, which I've now documented, there are lessons to be learned, right? There are examples to be followed, and also with the urgings of some of my colleagues and other persons. Let me tell you, for example, while I was in office, and of course working throughout the OECS, I developed great friendships with people like Dame Eugenia Charles, Sir John Compton. So the only other of my colleagues of that era living, Sir James Mitchell. And I recall from time to time, he always kept drumming this idea in my head. Kennedy boy, you need to write a book. You know, he has written a couple of books. He said, you need to write a book. You need to define your own legacy. He said, we are in politics, and there will be some who are for and some who are against. So do not let your legacy be defined by either side. You must define your legacy for yourself. And anytime I met him, he would say that. And then there's another person who was very strong and instrumental of me deciding to write the book. And that's a lady who still lives in Ponce Extension, Mrs. Wilhelmina Irish. Her son John, of blessed memory, worked with me in the Department of Foreign Affairs. And she always said, you have to write a book. You have to document your life. And she, of course, was on the same theme that you were on earlier. There's so many different aspects and facets. And so eventually, I succumbed to the idea of writing this book. I fought against it. And first I thought I'd take the easy way out, which is simply writing or compiling some of my speeches into a book. And all I had to do is get them all together, categorize them, and have a book with minimum amount of work. But I wasn't really quite satisfied with that. And eventually, I decided to try to write the book. My first effort was in writing it by hand. Now, you know this thing we said is what, 650 pages?
Yes.
Well, I mean, there's no way that you can write 650 pages by hand. I tried with my 2 or 3 finger typing, and I got about 3 lines out of that. But in the end, I hit upon the right tone. It's much easier for me to talk about my life, to talk about the book. If we really went into it, we'd sit here, so that it's much easier for me to tell you, well, you'll find out everything by reading the book. And one of my tennis friends, you'll be surprised to see how often tennis influences what happened in my life. One of my tennis friends said to me, why don't you? He'd like to hear my stories, actually. So he said, why don't we videotape it? And he brought his equipment, set it up in my house. Just like here, he made my living room a studio. And so day after day, I sat down and I talked about the various incidents in my life, the various stories. And eventually, we had them transcribed into text. And that's where the real work began.
So Kennedy, at 83 years old, to write a book, to have such a great memory of your life, to chronicle your life, is quite a feat at 83.
You're right. Well, I'm happy that I'm 83 and still have the faculties. But I'll tell you something further. One of the dangers is that people brush you aside because you're 83. Old people always talking about old times and so on. So you recall that you used to see me often in government headquarters in the archives because I wanted, as much as is possible, to substantiate much of what I put in this book.
Yes.
You see, 80 years ago, we had a daily newspaper in St. Kitts.
You told me about it.
And can you imagine, now 80 years later, you don't have a daily newspaper anywhere. But many copies of that daily newspaper are held in the archives. And as you go through this book, you will find from time to time that there are actual extracts from those daily newspapers to substantiate some of the things I talk about.
Yeah. Now, one of the good things about writing your autobiography, as you say, is that you get to tell the story in your own words. And basically, we have a lot of people who have biographies, and people are telling the story from a second-hand perspective. This is first-hand. It is in your own words, and it immortalizes. That is what it does. Your life. And that's a good thing about writing a book. It may not include everything about your life, but for people who will come after you, perhaps, of course, maybe your grandchildren and your children and so on, they will have something tangible that they can say, well, this is the making of a national hero. This is the life of a national hero, the younger generation.
Yes, you see, it never appealed to me, this idea of somebody writing for me. I know that is very popular and very common, in fact, and it probably is a lot easier than sitting down to write it yourself. But that approach never appealed to me, because in truth and in fact, I like to tell the stories. I enjoy telling the stories, and sometimes in a more convivial atmosphere, right? I think you could quite appreciate, right? It's great fun and enjoyment for me to tell of the old days of having to kick football with breadfruit, right? And because of that, kicking barefooted, you had to learn to do it properly, or you'd end up with a broken toe, you know. And how we made our own toys and things like that. And I feel that it is important to remind the younger generation as to where we came from and how we got here. The thing is, a lot of the younger generation don't read, but I think the adults perhaps have to direct them and maybe retell some of the stories from the book to some of the younger generation.
Well, you know the good thing, they may not read, but they watch a lot of movies. And one day, this book could be turned into a movie.
I think it
with
would be
somebody.
a lovely movie. I'd love to see it.
Yes. Good. Now, many people want to know, when is the launch of the autobiography and where will it be launched for the public?
Finally. Can say the launch occurs tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the old Bastia Boys School, the Methodist School room. It is on Victoria Road, right? And at that launch, of course, they will have an introduction of the author. They will have a little synopsis of what the book is about. And then I will have the opportunity to sort of give them an idea of, and maybe choose some of the interesting snippets from the book, just to whet the appetite and increase their desire to purchase the book. Sure. Because the launch is all about encouraging people to buy the book. And we will be properly set up to deal with that, either with cards, credit cards, debit cards, and obviously cash would be acceptable.
Now, in what format would the book be available? I see you have a hard copy here.
Now, the book is available in a hardcover edition, which is what I'm holding in my hand. It's also available in soft cover or paperback edition, and it's also available on the Kindle, electronic e-book. Now, all of these versions can be obtained on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Right? But it can also be obtained at the launch, and persons can purchase the launch. And if we are overwhelmed by this tremendous demand, for which, frankly, I think we probably were not prepared, have no fear. We have provided that at the launch, persons can make an order. And more books are on the way. Right. And we will, once we have their contact information, we will make it available. The other thing is that depending on, I shouldn't say depending, for those persons who might not get a copy of the book at the launch, for whatever reason, I'm prepared to have a second signing so that they may obtain the autographed copy. But certainly the book would be available. Oh, and the other place it will be available is the local bookstores after we have done the
Which
launch.
ones?
Various bookstores.
Okay, throughout the federation.
We are not partisan in that regard. It should be available at Harper's. It should be available at Law's Bookstore. I don't. Some of those in Nevis.
Sure.
Right.
But it's available in
Oh,
the
and it should
bookstores
be
locally.
available also at the National Museum.
Yes. Okay, now who would be invited? Who would you like to see at this launch? I mean, it's for everybody, but
Everybody. I want to see Tot Bung Mun and Bagay at the launch. It is for everybody. And I know we took the precaution of sending out some invitations, but it was more for us than for them, in the sense that if you don't want to advertise on radio and television and then a band start up down by the circus and you have a hall there and nobody in it. But I thought that by inviting some persons, they will at least feel an obligation. Some will feel obligation to attend. But it is for everybody.
okay. Let's get to price.
The price of the book. This hard copy will sell at 80 EC dollars. The paperback will sell for 60 EC dollars. The online, the Kindle edition is for $7.99 US dollars. Well, you're all on Amazon can sort that out.
Yes.
Right? But I want to make it clear that at the launch, these prices which we are giving at the launch, these are introductory prices. And so persons who actually
So they're discounted prices, or they're discounted.
persons who purchase at the launch or who make orders at the launch can be assured that whether they take the book away that night or not, they will be getting the book at this price. We cannot guarantee what happens weeks from now down the road. Because interestingly enough, the price from the time it went on sale at Amazon around the early part of November, the price has fluctuated on Amazon. The price for the hardcover was $29.99, and I've seen, looking on the website myself, I've seen quotations of up to $43 for the same book. So,
Right. Okay, now you will be autographing the book
yes,
as well.
I will be autographing on that night, and as I said, books that are ordered on that night, I'm prepared to autograph for persons as well.
Right. Now, you are the first, in your life, there has been many firsts.
There's a lot of us. I mean,
In your life.
there are some that are sort of more recent and well known and so on.
The more recent ones, I mean, you're the first living national hero. You are the first Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Those two, of course, that I know. But I know those are not the only firsts in your life. You've had a very long and fruitful political career as the first Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, leader of the People's Action Movement administration. You are a medical doctor by profession and an anesthetist.
Anesthesiologist. That's the Americans. We American trained. We say the anesthesiologist. That makes a distinction between the doctor administering anesthetic and the nurse anesthetist, which is also a profession in itself for those who follow that line. The English version, everybody's just called the anesthetist. Right. But you talk about being,
You were the one who led us into independence as well in 1983. That's also a first.
Well, you talk about first. I drove the first Ford Corsair car in St. Kitts. I drove the first Toyota Crown in St. Kitts. I drove the first Datsun 260C in St. Kitts. and I was the youngest first person at age 9 to enter high school in St. Kitts.
So those are some firsts.
Just happened to be around when the opportunity opened.
And you're a medical doctor. What would you say, Sir Kennedy? Are you more a doctor at heart or a politician at heart?
That's an easy question to answer, right? Easy question to answer. I mean, I'm definitely a doctor. My only, as a small boy in school, I wanted to be a doctor. And not only a doctor, the rest of the world didn't interest me as far as that's concerned. I wanted to be a doctor in St. Kitts. And I was motivated and by another boy who grew up in Rosemary Lane, who went on to become a doctor. And sometimes I've thought about it, beyond the fact that, well, he was up Rosemary Lane and I admired him, and as a result I followed this man. And I thought more about it. And in that, I believe there is a message for younger people. You know, we are encouraged to look up to our elders and our teachers and be our role models and older persons. But you know, young people can be our role models for other young people. And I think that I was one who benefited by that, being able to look up to another boy in school who was just a little further advanced than I was, and to try to follow that example.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would be some of the political highlights of the book?
Oh boy, perhaps the biggest highlight, I suppose, would be receiving the constitutional instruments from Princess Margaret to symbolize the fact that we are into independence. And to talking about independence, particularly memorable to me was the actual night of independence taking place in Warner Park. And that part of it is must reading for me. I'm not going to tell you anything about it. You've got to read the book to follow it. Look for that, right? But there are some, the formation of PAM. That is one of those things which I didn't think about. I mean, on the day on which I became involved with PAM, if you had asked me early in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, are you going to enter politics? I would say, what? Enter politics? I don't have such a thought in my head. But before midnight of that same day, I found myself as the secretary of the People's Action Movement. How that happened and the circumstances surrounded is set out in the book. But obviously, being part of the founding of the People's Action Movement was one of the important highlights. And I think there is much of a story surrounding that. Mm-hmm. Right?
No, you would have had, of course, a lot of political successes. And as you said, your life has been, a dichotomy of success and failure, highs and lows, valleys and mountains and so on. What would be some of those failures that you chronicle in the book? Or what would you consider? Probably not failure,
let's call a spade a spade. I don't have a problem with that. But in each failure, there's a lesson. 1966 was the first time I offered for electoral office. And not only as a party, we did not succeed, but me as an individual never won a seat. 1966, 1971, 1975. But what is the story there? That when you're knocked down, you dust yourself off, and you get up and you go again. Right? It's not the fact that you're knocked down, it's that you're able to get up and move on again. Because in 1975, we didn't see the opportunity of 1979 coming, when then we got up on the mountain and left the valley. with the by-election of 1979 and followed that up with the success of 1980, which then gave the opportunity for independence in 1983 and so on. Right? I had a particular feeling that I chronicle in the book, and also the lessons from it. In that, as a young man in school, I had never failed any examination. And when I went to university, I failed the first examination that I had to take. And the circumstances surrounding that, I think, are very special, and you'll have to read about it.
Yes.
But there is a lesson in that failure, and that is chronicled in the volume.
Okay, and several other things I know from my own research, the 1993 elections, the aftermath of the Four Seasons Accord, the Christina disaster. You were
Very much involved. Let me start with the Four Seasons Accord. Many people have different interpretations as to what happened and how it happened and why the Four Seasons Accord. But that the facts are chronicled in here. Right? I was the person who requested that the Chamber of Commerce should try to host a meeting of political parties and other stakeholders, the Christian Council, the Chamber of Commerce, and so on. Right? And not many people even bother to think that it is so, but I've had to document it in here with, of course, the evidence.
right, and I would hope that you would have in that book as well the National Bank Rescue,
The National Bank
the
Rescue
acquisition of the West farmlands,
is that the West farmlands are well documented in here.
the 1979 by-election.
1990, it's all documented in here.
Right.
They're all very essential parts of my political career.
And the Commission of Inquiry. There was a Commission of Inquiry into your administration.
And also, that is documented in here. And the curtain fell upon it in a very interesting way, which is documented here.
So it's all documented there.
All those things you mentioned are well documented in the book.
So it, of course, that is even a further drive for people to come out and get the book. And it's told from your perspective.
And there's something in here for everybody. Some people want to read the book to know of my time in boys' school, some in grammar school, what happened when you went to university. But there are a lot of people too who want to know about the various elections and the West farmland and being arrested and the Commission of Inquiry and so on. So there's something in here for everybody.
Well, Sir Kennedy, I can't wait to read it. I will be at the launch because I need my autographed copy.
I was going to tell you, have a good night's sleep, get a good night's sleep tonight, and come ready tomorrow.
Right, so tomorrow I will be there, and, because it's a long time you've been telling me about you writing this. When I would come up by your place, and sometimes people don't even know we would play tennis.
I tell you, tennis is high in this thing here, right? But everybody can find, I think, what they're looking for in here.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sir Kennedy, for sharing about all the excitement about the making of a national hero. Our only living national hero. And it is something for our people, Kitishans and Divisions, to behold, our young people especially, politicians, people from all walks of life that can perhaps see part of themselves in this autobiography that you have written. So thank you so much. And I look forward to the launch. Thank you. The launch of The Making of a National Hero, the autobiography of Dr. the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons will take place in St. Kitts on Thursday, the 19th December at the Old Boys School on Victoria Road at 7 p.m. and in Nevis at the St. Paul's Anglican Church Hall at 6 p.m. on Friday, December 20th. We hope to see you there. I am Les Roy Williams. Thank you for viewing this short interview, but very interesting interview of the life of Dr. the Right Excellent and Right Honorable Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons. Goodbye.